Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism. And this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous. And here's her story. Hi, Ollie. My mother was born in 64 or 65, and I in 83. Here's my story. So your mother was like 19, 20 when she had you? Or 21? Wait, you were born in... No, yeah, she was like 19 or 20. Okay, here is my story. I tried to reconcile our relationship on my end. We were spending time together walking. I had hoped that my firm boundaries and redirecting away from gossip would be enough to maintain a relationship. In that time, she gossiped and showed disinterest in my life. That was the moment that I realized that I had conveniently forgotten all the crap they had put us through growing up. I realized no matter how hard I tried to forgive and forget the past, it just wasn't possible. When I was a small child, my mother forced me to eat food out of the trash can as punishment for throwing it away. I remember her yelling at me. I was crying and having a gag reflex as I tried to comply. You know, Charlene has similar memory of her mother. And to this day, she can't eat donuts because her mother caught her. She threw out a donut that she didn't like in the trash can, and then her mother made her eat it out of the trash can. It bothers her to this day. It's like one of those memories of her mother that she can't let go of. She can't forgive or forget, nor should she. Like a dog, and she's like, I'll never forget her face, the satisfaction she got out of it as she forced me to eat that donut, which she didn't like because she don't like donuts. Knowing she don't like the donut and knowing that she was making her eat it out of the garbage, that self-satisfaction they get out of it, you pick up on that and you never forget it. I was molested by a step-cousin at the same age as myself when we were small children. I hold my parents responsible for this. It's not that difficult to put the children's safety before the urge to party. I realize now that my being the illegitimate child is why they thought they may have gotten away with it. I was sexually harassed by another family's son who was older than me. Our parents used to be friends from their childhoods. I don't have a clear memory, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I remember enough to know that something did happen. My mother still brings up the mother of that family in a way that suggests she cares about her. That woman raised a sexual predator, and I don't care how her life is going. Mother doesn't care if I was hurt or if I get hurt. She just doesn't care. If I put myself in the same position, there is no way I would even bring up that family. I wouldn't have put my child in a dangerous situation to begin with. I was molested by a friend of the family. My first stepfather was in no situation to be watching kids. And here we go. My first alarm went off, and when I read step cousin, I'm like, what the fuck is a step cousin? Like, what is this? And I'm like, and I'm thinking step cousin how? Molested, negligence. I'm already thinking the mother's got to be down for some dick and attention. And right now we're on your first stepfather. So we're already off your father. Don't even know. We're already on. We know there's multiple stepfathers because you started this with your first stepfather. Dick and attention, dick and attention, dick and attention. Your mother's born in 64, 65. She's like right at the end of the boomer age. She's kind of like that Generation Jones boomer type. I mean, born 64, 65. I mean, this woman's not even 10 years older than I am. So, what is she, 54, 55, 56 at this point of her life? My first stepfather was in no situation to be watching kids. He didn't have a place for us to stay, and he partied when we stayed with him. My mother was selfish in not recognizing that he did not have a place to keep us, and instead of her partying on weekends ahead of our safety and well-being. My mother and first stepfather fought often and loud and physically. Her second marriage was similar. My mother was physically abusive. She regularly slapped us out of frustration, beat us with her hand, the belt, random objects she could grab, a wooden spoon, and once beat my brother with a broom. Oh, women, you're all women are flowers, right? You're all delicate flowers. Another one, putting her own vagina, her own good time ahead of the safety of her own children. My mother was emotionally abusive, often yelling at us seemingly at random. We never knew what she would be angry about or how to avoid her wrath. When my stepfather left, my mom was crying and my brother was crying. I started crying. My mother dearest chastised me. She told me that since he wasn't my real father, I had no reason to be upset. To put things in perspective, it should be noted that I thought of that man as my dad. Well, where is your dad? Well, that would be my first question. Where is your dad? What happened there? My mother kicked me out of the house as a teenager, too young to get a hotel room or rent my own place. She instructed the family to report any sightings of me to keep her and to keep the door. She instructed the family to report any sightings of me to her and keep the doors locked. After kicking me out, she took the rest of the family out to dinner. The weather was dangerously cold at the time. When I told her how cold I was, she just acts like she's familiar with being cold with no acknowledgement of the neglect and abuse. I had no boundaries growing up. She could come in my room anytime she pleased and would trash my belongings if she were in a rage. She accused me of making everyone walk on eggshells around me, but this was classic. This was the classic projection. The truth is that I was exhausted from her unpredictable rages. She told me that no one would want to be around me if I didn't change. She convinced my enabling family members, grandmother, and my friend that we were just having problems getting along as a mother and daughter, instead of the truth that she was horribly abusive. Mother was overbearing with her opinions. Disagreeing with her meant getting yelled at. Once she was irritated with me and made a point to walk past me twice so that she positioned herself behind me and make it like I was in her way. Oh, this was a classic. This was, my mother was like a fucking charging rhinoceros, like a bull, and she'd stalk you. And when she wanted the fight, she'd just keep provoking it and picking at it and picking at it. And she'd get progressively worse and worse if you didn't give her the fight, until she just went out and started swinging and trashing your room and breaking your possessions until you tried to physically stop her and defend yourself, and then you were accused of attacking her. The famous line in my house was, "Get the bat, Michael." Michael, my brother Precious. My mother had to keep a Louisville Slugger behind her bedroom door, supposedly because I was so violent and so crazy. Mind you, my mother was physically bigger than me until about my junior year of high school. So like you're being bullied by your own mother, and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, I hope the bitch is rotten. I really do. I hope the bitch is rotting. She yelled at me to move out of her way as she repositioned herself behind me to repeat. My mother would start Saturdays by screaming and yelling at us to clean the house. We were so stressed by her erratic behavior that we would sometimes fight over the broom to avoid her wrath. After the cleaning was done, she would sigh with relief and proudly announce that she felt better and can relax the next day. She expected us all to react that we felt the same way. Once I wanted to attend a Sunday school as a child. She refused to help me get up and get prepared. Instead, I woke up with just enough time to see the Sunday school bus drive past our house. I remember feeling extremely disappointed. Oddly enough, she's an atheist. My faith in God has been strong since I was a small child. She hates Christianity even though she celebrates Christmas and Easter. That's because she hates it because she sees her sins in it. She's not smart enough to figure out how to turn it around and exploit it for her own well-being. So she sees herself in the commandments. My grades were in the top of my class and I regularly made A's, but when her golden child barely made a passing grade, the entire family celebrated. He was even paid for passing grades, while anything from me below average was a disappointment. She once chased my brother around our yard, beating him with a broom. She tied my brother to his bed at night with zippy ties. She grounded my brother for over a half a year at one point. She drove us home intoxicated. She downplays how much she had to drink at the event. She told us that she understood why a mother killed her children, referencing the one who drowned her children in the car. Yeah, oh, Susan Smith. Yeah, Mother of the Year. You know, unfortunately, there's just too many of these women who think like this. It's women like your mother are the ones who are desperate for power. They're the ones who scream about the unfairness and the patriarchy and how unfair women have it. Do you want to give a woman like this any type of power over your life? I learned that my aunt would shake my crib to wake me up crying so she could hold me. My mother told me this because the story amuses her. My mother once screamed and yelled at me while she trashed my room. When I was in tears as a result, she accused me of faking it and said that I should be an actress. Oh, how many times have I been... Let's wait for the fire truck to leave the house. Sorry about that. They'd hurt you physically, they'd break you emotionally. And then they accuse you of being an actress and make fun of you in the process. You're a faker, you're an actor, you're in it for attention. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Once, when my mother was in a rage, she told us that we could go live with our dad if we wanted to. If it was so bad that I started packing, that hurt her feelings. Wait a minute. So your dad, you do know who your dad is. When I started dating my husband, my mother told my brother that it would not last. My mother has tried to get me To lie to my husband on multiple occasions about stupid stuff. When I would refuse, she would act like it would be funny and egg me on. She hates that I respect and value my husband. We went to stay with her for 2 weeks, and she was irritated that I would pet my cat. My cat was glad when we moved back out. She told me that because I gave my pets fresh water every day and that I was spoiling them. Once when my mother and her second husband was staying with us, her husband sent my husband a sexually explicit meme in an attempt at humor. I told him that sending things like that to my husband hurt me. My mother told me that I was not allowed to speak to her husband and that if a meme upset me, then I had insecurity issues. This was during the time they stayed with us. Do you really want sexually and explicit memes from your father-in-law? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. It's weird. It's creepy. And again, it's a total lack of respect for any type of boundary whatsoever. And the fact that your mother went to insecurity about what? Insecure about what? Like, are you and your husband like trying to pull him into some weird fucking menage? Like, why would the fact that she would accuse you of having insecurity issues is proof positive that there's more behind that meme than just an old guy being inappropriate, at least in your mother's mind. It was during the time they stayed with us as guests between homes. She hated every house they looked at. When a reasonable one became available, we told them to take it and move out. That lasted over a month. Me, 2 weeks with an apartment lined up. Her, a few months that was open-ended. But I was the homebody who would never move out, they told me. They had no faith that I was capable. She told me that when she would visit and I didn't answer, she would bang on my windows to my bedroom to try to wake me up. One time, Mother had been physically attacked by my stepsister. I stated that I wasn't comfortable with stepsister's presence. Word got back to my mother about how I felt, and she called and disowned me. Good, that probably if the disownment had stuck, you'd have been a lot better off. She said that she didn't want anything to do with me. This discard lasted for about 6 months. During this discard, she bought my brother's girlfriend a new phone. Then, right before her birthday and Mother's Day, she called me and said she missed me. She's loud and obnoxious in public. It's almost like she's putting on a show for strangers. I confessed I used to smoke weed with her and family. It was the only way we could bond and spend time together. When we decided that we did want to raise a family, I told her I would be quitting. She asked me why I wanted to quit. I told her for my health, to save money, and to be a good mother. She told me that I wouldn't quit and I would just change how I smoked. She then admitted to smoking weed and drinking up to 2 beers at a time during her pregnancies. I did quit and have been clean for a while now. There was no withdrawal period and no cravings. I guess when you really want something and put your mind to it, it's not so hard to achieve. Mother once told me that if she wanted that she could take my niece and nephew's parents to court and win a custody battle against them. She has bedrooms for them at her house. My mother once asked if I might be a little bipolar. She didn't ask out of concern. She lost an essential part to my telescope. Then on two different times pretended she didn't know that my telescope is unusable. That had been a gift from my first stepfather and I loved it. I still keep the broken telescope because it reminds me of him. What about your father? Where is your father? That's my question in all this. She accuses me of being headstrong and then frames it as a compliment paired with constructive criticism. My grandmother stopped returning phone calls and mailing cards. My mother has trained me in her skilled trade. That last day we worked together, she had gotten angry at me for showing up to work after moving out. She started screaming that I was fired. Do you work for your mother? At first I grabbed a few things, but then she came at me to hit me. I was able to get by her as she hit me several times. When I made it out, she threw my tools on the floor. My coworker backed me up when she told our other roommate, calling my mother crazy. Fortunately, I had a new job before the week was out. Thanksgiving was a reminder that I don't matter to my mother. The longer we stayed, the more I realized that they made dinner and spent a large portion of the day together. My mother made sure I knew how much fun they were preparing the meal together without me. We really weren't meant to be a part of it. We were supposed to show up to see how wonderfully happy she is without us. My brother and his now ex-girlfriend flipped out on me because I didn't like him leaving leftover milk in the sink overnight. His girlfriend screamed at me while she trashed my living room. Why are you around any of these people? I mean, this is reading like a lot of random thoughts coming out all at once. I mean, when my husband came home and seen me cleaning up the mess, he confronted them. They lied to him, claiming that I was the one who flipped out and trashed the living room. My brother lied about me and tried to make me look crazy to my husband. My husband knew they were lying. My brother has not acknowledged the lie or apologized for their behavior. I still can't wrap my head around why he would lie like that about me. I'm beginning to feel like I have been looking for something that isn't there with my family of origin. Yeah, you're looking for something, thinking that they care one bit about you. You're just a punching bag to them. I remembered that her husband and my brother and my grandmother have all ignored my texts and phone calls. I realize that I've been scapegoated my whole life. I get the feeling that any child I have will be a little interest to my family. I realize that my existence has always been devalued by my mother and subsequently the family. My dear husband's unconditional love has been a saving grace. It still hurts, though. Could it be that I am mourning? It could be that you're just realizing you never had a family in the first place. All this randomness, all these random thoughts, okay, all lead to one thing. These people were never your family in the first place. None of them. None of them like you. None of them respect you. None of them want you to be happy. Keeping them in your life is only going to drag you down into further toxicity. Because that's the only thing they know. It's the only thing they want. I'm sorry. It's the only thing they know. It's the only thing they want is more and more toxicity. These people were never, ever, ever your family. Ever. They're your blood. They're not your family. They don't know what family is. I'm sorry. This thing died on me. How long does it feel so unbearable? First, you have to clean the room before you can bandage and let it heal. Cleaning the wound always hurts a little more, and so does the initial healing phase. That's why it takes so long. No one likes to heal the wound, but we must. There were a couple times I had passed out. My mother had disowned me, and we were very busy for the holidays. Your mother had disowned you at birth. Understand something. Your mother disowned you at birth. That's what all the ex-husbands are about, the sexual abuse, the neglect. You were disowned at birth. My mother had disowned me, and we were very busy for the holidays. I was feeling terrible, but was very productive. The next thing I remember was that I could barely hear my co-employee directly behind me calling out for help. Then I woke up on the office floor. They made me call someone to take me home, and having just moved out of home, I called my mother. She was annoyed that I called and sent my roommate to drive me. I had many memories surface. Some old memories would be viewed in a different light. There is a lot of shame. I read that many others experience shame as well. We are ashamed that we came from such dark places, that our homes were prisons and we were prisoners. Mom liked to tell a story about when I was a toddler. She thought it was funny. A few times when they didn't watch me close enough, I would grab a can of beer off the coffee table and start to guzzle it. What kind of parents would allow that to happen? Ones who would rather spend their time partying. These memories made me realize that the sexual assaults I suffered were entirely our parents' fault. They didn't want to be parents, they wanted to party. I realized that they were conditioned to be more accepting of abuse. That, combined with the ignoring parental style, is why terrible things happen that shouldn't happen to anybody. Her boyfriend played band at our house. She loved the party life. The music was loud and obnoxious. I hated it. It probably made her feel cool. When I was a teen, my mother's boyfriend sold me a vehicle on loan. I paid a large portion of the loan. My birthday rolled around and he told me that my gift was that the rest of the loan was forgiven. Later, my mother told me that I hadn't paid on the loan for the vehicle. I was shocked that they wouldn't acknowledge what I paid, or that they forgave the rest of the loan. When I told my husband what I did pay, he informed me that the vehicle wasn't worth that much, and they ripped me off. One time when we visited them for Christmas, they made a big spread. My mother was irritated that I didn't notice that they made all that food and didn't eat because they were doing cocaine. She had told me her husband had a cocaine problem, but she enabled this habit and did it too, all the while complaining about him doing it and wasting money. I realized the reason my mother wants to believe that I am crazy is that so she can hide the fact that she is the crazy one. She knows that I remember the abuse. She must remember it as well. She knows I will stand up for myself and others instead of buying into her lies and manipulations. I'm a threat to her because I speak the truth and I am not afraid of her anymore. I see how she tries to pretend to be the poor mother whose daughter is mentally ill. She carefully orchestrates excluding me from the family and triangulates our contact. She used to brag to me about these tactics. She was trying to teach me to be like her. I knew inherently she was wrong and refused to harm others. So she turned on me because I refused to gossip. She could see that I saw through her. The entire thing about making me out to be mentally ill was her covering her tracks. I'm not okay. I have PTSD and come from a negligent and abusive childhood, but I am not mentally ill. I'm more mentally stable than she could ever grasp. And labeling you as crazy and mentally ill or violent, is their go-to tactic. It's how they discredit you. Our former neighbor is a convicted child sex offender. My mother's boyfriend still maintains a relationship with him, and my mother has been giving me updates on the court cases. I made it clear that I will not associate with a known felon, especially a pedophile. If anything, seeing how forgiving they are of a convicted pedophile is eye-opening. Oh, well, depends. To them, it probably depends on how old was it, These people are degenerates. These people are degenerates. I had internalized the inability to protect myself due to my parents' negligence and abuse. They refused to properly care for and protect us. That damage registered as an inability to protect my possible future children. I see now that it is our parents' fault that we were harmed. I remember how she told me, if you're going to be that way, I don't want anything to do with you. If I wasn't going to sweep the crazy making abuse under the rug, was what she meant. But that part, I don't want anything to do with you, is the messaging she gave me throughout my life. Like I told you, she disowned you at birth. I don't want anything to do with you. When they tell you these things, believe them. I remember when I graduated from high school, my mother and her boyfriend got into a fight on the way to eating out with our grandparents. Her boyfriend pointed out that I had just graduated. My mother snapped that I was used to her fighting with him and that I would be fine. When I was little, she cornered me in the kitchen and asked me if we got water and the sugar. I can't remember my age, but was in elementary school. I told her what I was told to tell her, that the sugar had been bought that way. She flipped out. One time she took me to a therapist for being moody. I told him the truth. Once she started with her yelling and anger that she would just keep coming at me and wouldn't stop. I cried from the release. The therapist told me it wasn't my fault and that he was sorry for what I had been through. Guess who never got to see that or another therapist again? When I was an adult and was a roommate with my brother, I had a tooth filling fall out. I didn't have the money to get a root canal and so ignored the infection while saving. When the pain was unbearable, I paid to have the tooth removed. My brother got angry at me after the procedure. He told me that he was better than me because I had borrowed money to have the tooth removed. I screamed back at him that I didn't borrow a penny. I encouraged him to call anyone he thought I borrowed money from. He also called me a whore several times throughout the argument. I told him that I had only been with one man. Why are you even justifying this to your brother? Your whole family is fucked up. Your whole family is fucked up. And you need to stay away from all of them. Your brother is actually jealous of you for getting your tooth fixed. Like you have to justify where the money came from. And you got to justify your sex life to your brother. Like you are so far over the line with these people. I told him I'd only been with one man and asked him how many women he'd been with. Who cares? See, you know what? Here's what I'm going to tell you, Anonymous. You're too involved in everything your brothers and sisters are doing as well. Your mother has turned you all against each other. You're all toxic for each other and need to stay away from each other. All of you. All of you. If he wanted to call me a whore, then he was most certainly a man whore. After calling me a whore a few more times, he backed off. Looking back, I'm astounded that in his mind I was less of a person for needing money. He wanted to shame me for borrowing money for a medical procedure that our society would have treated as a reasonable purpose to borrow money for. Never mind that I didn't borrow money and lost the tooth. It's the point of the matter. If the tables were turned, then the concept of borrowing money would have been accepted by him. I realized that my brother had internalized the attitude that I don't matter and my health doesn't matter. And he took that from our family and made it very clear to me. But I love him dearly, but I'm not going to put up with him mistreating me the same way our parents did. What's the love? Why do you love him? Why? Does he love you? You're living in a fantasy world here if you think you have a family. You were disowned at birth from all of them. I realized something. I didn't want to go to their funerals or will readings. I realized that I didn't care about my share of our inheritance. I told my husband, who has watched this process from the sideline, and he simply agreed. He seems to understand they are terrible people and has wondered why I keep going back to them through the years. I figured it was because I had to experience it as an adult with the proper mental tools to confirm and protect myself. I watched a video recently where it was mentioned that abused children instinctually create safe places mentally. I didn't have a place as much as I felt the urge to fly. I wanted to fly away like a falcon where none of the pain could reach me. Mother convinced me to help her on jobs. She said she wanted company. She would take up the entire day with errands after jobs and then guilt trip me for wanting to go home. When I told her I wanted to see my husband, her reaction was, "What's so important about him?" Every single time we go to work together, her errands was getting her prescription drugs that she and her husband abused. That crap always got under my skin. It was just too much, and I eventually stopped working with her. I felt incredibly alone, which is what they want me to feel. Fortunately, they have never been able to drive a wedge between my husband and myself. Our bond is very tight and they resent it. By the way, my husband is the same man that I was with when my brother screamed whore at me. My brother has since broken up with one and has children with two others. I'm still not a whore and never will be. They think they are better than me and it used to be frustrating. I couldn't care less what they think of me now. I struggled with suicidal ideation and urges for most of my life due to the trauma and abuse. I have to survive. I have to do well to stick it to them. Another thing that helps me is that I had to give my life purpose. I was looking at our budget and realized we could afford small donations to our local food pantry. This thrilled me because we were so poor at one point, it was the only food my husband and I could get. We would go some days without food and then eat from the food pantry with gratitude. Where was she when her daughter starved? Oh, that's right. She may have discarded me during this time. They want me dead. The wild baby raccoons incident. She had rescued 2 baby raccoons from feral cats. She had them in a cage in her living room. My brother and his pregnant girlfriend were staying with her. She told me that the raccoons seemed depressed and suggested using dust from farm animals to get the fleas and ticks off them. She brought wild animals with fleas and ticks and kept them in their house. Disgusting. I brought the dust over and was trying to explain to her they needed to slow down and do it safely. I simply wanted her to dust them at the wood's edge to avoid parasites from spreading in her yard and house. She got very short with me and ended up dusting right in her front yard. As soon as she was done, she was carrying the cage back in the house. Sure enough, within minutes, her living room was full of ticks trying to get away from the dust. We visited my grandmother and my husband's grandmother every other weekend. That added up to over 400 miles every other weekend, around 800 miles a month. My husband's grandmother was pleasantly surprised and were wonderful hosts. My grandmother acted like we never visited enough and would My grandmother acted like we never visited enough and would regret it when they died. She also wondered why we were always broke to my mom. She probably from paying for all that gas. She played the victim to that point that the ranch hand told us they were doing a good deed by visiting her. My brother gave me an art pencil for my birthday once. He told me he stole it because he just couldn't understand how a pencil could cost so much. Later, I found the same pencil in the store and discovered it was worth less than $1. Grandmother told me that getting pregnant wouldn't make my husband stay. My husband and I weren't even planning to have a baby back then. So my mother must have noticed her texts have went unanswered. She knocked on my door last week. She brought her husband and my niece and nephew. My husband and I just opted to not answer the door. She knocked twice and my heart started racing. They left a small bag with gifts in it, penned, "Love you, Mom." Later that evening, I get a text from my brother. He was inviting us to visit him this weekend. Well, the vernacular wasn't his. It was obviously only sent because she had said something to him or his girlfriend. I haven't told my mother that I'm not putting up with it anymore. I just tried to fade away. At first it seemed to be working, and I'm not sure how far she and the family will go to try to suck me back in. I've considered answering their texts generically and declining all invites. Then I get angry again after reading my journal, and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Do you think I am wrong for ghosting on the family? I keep wavering between feeling guilty and angry. It's just a battle I don't feel like having. Thank you for your time and opinions. I hope my story helps others and provides your channel with appropriate content. Anonymous. What you got to realize here, Anonymous, is what I told you earlier. Your parents disowned you at birth. Your mother disowned you at birth. The fact that they're coming around now is only to screw with your life. Is only to spread their toxicity back on you. You want my opinion? Ghost them and continue to ghost them. Don't talk to them. Put up a wall and keep them out of your life. Okay? Because your mother has done nothing but disown you since birth. So what? So she can hoover you back in, so you can be called a whore some more by your brother, have your sister-in-law disrespect you and lie on you. Why? Why have any of them in your life? For what? Your mother disowned you at birth. Realize that. The fact that they're physically coming around is meaningless. They're only coming around to further abuse you. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your contribution and story, Anonymous. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all of this goes away, as I am completely demonetized from YouTube. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care.